hard to believe, but both the academic and athletic year have come to a close here at IPFW. Today, we'll take a look back at the progress of the athletic teams here at the university, and we'll also take a look ahead and see what Dr. Walter Bowman's crystal ball shows. Dr. Bowman is our special guest, and he's the Director of Athletics here at IPFW. It's the season finale of Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform, millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maas. Welcome to the final edition of Mastodon Spotlight for the 1999-2000 season. Well, as we mentioned a moment ago, this year has gone by way too fast. A lot of things have happened here at the university, and we welcome Dr. Walter Bowman as our special guest. Dr. Bowman is the Director of Athletics here at IPFW. Dr. Bowman, first and foremost, thanks for coming back on the show.
Always good to be here. Always good to talk about Mastodon athletics.
Before we get into everything that happened over this last year from the athletic standpoint, let's ask you first a question. I had you on the Tony Vittorio show when you first came to town, roughly about 13 months ago. Right. And my question to you is, now that you've been here for 13 months, what has that period been like?
Well, actually, my first appearance here was a year ago, March. So in the last 13, 14 months, it has been very exciting, fast-paced, challenging, rewarding, and fulfilling. All of the above, and it's just great to be here in Fort Wayne.
We're going to take a look at the progress of the teams in a moment, but before we do that, there's a twofold question I'd like to ask. Number one, what has been your biggest accomplishment so far? And two, what has been your biggest disappointment here at the university?
Well, you know, the biggest achievement, if we can use that word, we hope lies out there yet this month, and everybody here in Fort Wayne is certainly very aware of our drive to Division I. If that happens, that's going to be tough to top in year one. If it doesn't, though, there are just so many great things to look back on. Certainly the great run soccer had, certainly following volleyball right up into the Final Four and hosting a great event here for the city. These are just accomplishments of teams and universities and lots of people. I think probably in a disappointment, and that's probably also not a great word, because there really haven't been any disappointments. I think for me, probably not being able to get out and to get to know more and more of the people who attend all of our games. And that's something that I really have to work on in the next year, is to get to know more and more by name, not just be able to greet them, but to really be able to call them by their name. And so I think, again, it's not a disappointment, but it's a challenge to me yet to fulfill.
Let's take a look back now, starting with the fall sports, way back when, it seems like an eternity ago. And I'm going to make a comment on where the team's placed, and I'm also going to mention players who achieved either all-conference status or all-American status, and just a brief comment on your part on these teams. And the first two sports we'll talk about is a sport that honestly we didn't cover much this year, but it's cross country. For those who like to run and like cardiovascular exercise, men's and women's teams. The women's team finished 9th in the conference meet. The men's team finished 5th in the conference meet. Comments about the cross-country season first.
Well, you know, probably the biggest disappointment in cross-country is we had a great coach in the name of Robert Watterson, and health reasons did not allow him to finish what he really started. Robert got a great start by recruiting a lot of freshmen, particularly on the men's side. And actually our top runner all year long was a freshman fellow, and he just did a great job. But the women's team took a little longer to put together. However, we think that that holds great as we look to the future. But those teams, I think, now have a solid base. We have some new coaches, but we certainly are disappointed in losing Robert.
We turn our attention to one of the new teams here at the university, women's soccer. And unfortunately, the ladies did not win a match, but they did score a couple of goals, and that was a moral victory in itself. The fact that we put a new team in place with the soccer program on the ladies' side.
Well, you know, it is always difficult when you start a new program, and we'll talk a little bit in just a couple of minutes about the winter programs in our indoor and outdoor track. The women truly had a long season, but I think that there was a substantial groundwork laid with the 5 or 6 that will be back next year. I will say this right now, and I will guarantee the women's team will win some soccer games next year. There's no doubt about that. And I think they went through the trial and error, but you know, they held their head up, they never quit, they stayed there, and I think in that sense did show some true progress.
Well, we changed genders from the women's soccer team to the men's soccer team. And what can you say about Coach Terry Stefankowitz and his team? They were 8-1-2 in the conference, tied for first in the regular season. They won the conference tournament. They won the regionals in a thrilling overtime win over Truman State. They advanced to the Elite 8, finished 8th in the country in the rankings, and finished with a record of 18-3-2. And what a great year. And taking a quick look at the GLVC All-Conference team, Matt Hine, Chris Kramer, Jeff Ritchie, Dave Smith, and Mark Watson all made the first team, and Brian Knitter made the second team. Terry Stefankowitz was the coach of the year. Matt Hine was the player of the year. A tremendous accomplishment for Terry and his team.
Well, you know, it all happened right. There was great senior leadership, a strong core of juniors that were there, augmented by some great sophomores and freshmen. The goals tallied at the right time. Terry kept the team together. His leadership single-handedly kept the team relaxed. I was at the Truman State game when it all went south in the last 5 minutes of regulation. We let them tie us when we had a 2-0 lead with approximately 10 minutes to go, and then to come back in overtime and to win it. You know, they probably, and you look at a fall sport, you look at the year, they probably epitomized what team is about and provided the real excitement this year as far as on and off the courts and fields.
One thing we'll comment more about in the next segment is that Terry will be handling not only the men's team next year, but the women's team as well, but we'll save that for segment 2. The final sport in the fall was women's tennis, and Coach Jay Webb Horton's team did a great job. They tied for second with SIU Edwardsville in the regular season behind Northern Kentucky, and got to the semifinals where they did lose to SIU Edwardsville, but still a tremendous year for women's tennis.
You know, they have been strong, as I understand it, for the last couple of years. Jay has done a great job in the leadership in bringing that team forward. A team, again, that had some upper-class leadership, but strength throughout the number 1 through 5 in the doubles teams. And Jay is to be commended, and the women are to be commended for what they pulled off. And to come that close to winning the conference and the conference we're in is commendable. Certainly, very, very much so. I know you said it was the last sport, but you know, we still have another great one to talk about.
You're correct, and I stand corrected. A quick note, Jenna Harmeyer and Dawn Carrier did make all-conference in tennis. Yep. Now that final fall sport, women's volleyball. Again, another new coach, and we'll talk more about that in the next segment as well. Champions of the blue division with a conference record of 15-1. Their only loss was to the green division champion Northern Kentucky. They got to the conference finals where, again, unfortunately, they lost to Northern Kentucky. But an overall record of 24-8. And Kelly had a great year for a first-year coach.
She sure did. And, you know, again, as you're reading all these, I'm sitting here thinking how many of these new coaches came and brought a whole new dimension to the department, both in their experience, their expertise, their enthusiasm, new dreams, winning teams. But the women's volleyball team, again, without, again, a couple of seniors, but a team that's really loaded juniors and down. And I think this is our year now. That's nothing about those that just finished, because I tell you what a great record they had over their time here, both with Kelly and then prior to that under Tim Heffron. But I think as we look out, we're just going to build on that great stepping stone she had, and I believe we're going to look at conference champions in the year 2000, 2001.
And we should inform our viewers, Kelly is Kelly Hartley, first-year coach here at IPFW. Quick footnote with women's volleyball, Courtney Bossonnet, Laura Douglas, Tammy Ish, Jody Schnelker all made first team all-conference, and Rachel Brown was second team. Again, a great performance by the women's volleyball team. Now we move into the winter sports. Winter sports being primarily men's and women's basketball. We'll start with the women first. Again, a pair of new coaches. For the women, a conference record of 9-11 and a tremendous accomplishment. They made it into the GLVC tournament down in Evansville. An overall record of 13-14. Carl Semesko did a great job.
Well, I mean, the overall record in conference before the one loss in the championship down there in the conference tournament, 13-13, a team that won 2 or 3 games last year, probably didn't win 2 or 3 games the year before, took a team primarily of freshmen and turned it around. I mean, if there's truly a coach of the year in Division II, in my opinion, it's Carl Semesko, and certainly the coach of the conference, even though he didn't get it. Boy, when you look at what these freshmen are going to do and what they've already accomplished, again, the sky is the limit, and Carl is definitely headed us in the right direction.
A couple of quick footnotes. Jamie Holderman made honorable mention in the conference, all-conference voting, and Trish Fleming was voted Freshman of the Year. Final team we'll talk about before our first break is men's basketball. And again, a new coach in Doug Knoll coming over from Spring Arbor. The team finished 8-12 in the conference, 11-16 overall, but Doug did get them into the postseason. And I remember on one of our shows we had back, Doug had 4 goals, and he accomplished 3 of the 4. And those 4 goals were keep everyone academically eligible, make the conference tournament. I'm drawing a blank on the third one.
Win our tournament.
Yeah, win our season opening tournament, which we did. Thank you very much. And have at least a 500 record. And although we didn't get the 500 record, he's still 3 out of 4 isn't bad.
Well, you know, again, you're talking about coaches, all of them, and not just Doug, that came in here anytime from April on, some of them as late maybe as August. Recruiting primarily, as you know, at that time is virtually done, and yet you're able to bring in a core of men in this case, or women in other sports, who've gone out and competed for IPFW. Doug did a fantastic job. A team that hadn't won but 7 maybe the previous year gets them up to 11. I think in probably you take 4 or 5 games, there's a 10-point difference total, which could have very easily been not just a winning record, but second place in the conference, which dramatically changes everything. Again, another person that the future is bright. Our basketball program are in good hands with Doug and with Carl.
One other footnote, senior Steve Griffin did make first team All-GLVC. Dr. Bowman, let's pick up with the spring sports, starting with men's tennis. Again, J. Webb Horton is the coach. The team finished in 5th place in the GLVC regular season, 5-4 conference record. They finished 6th in the conference tournament, but still with a very young team, J. Webb did a fine job.
Well, you know, not did he do just a great job in the women's. He comes right back, almost duplicates that with the men. The best finish they've had in a number of years, the highest finish, some clear upsets. Again, a credit to Jay's easygoing, just teaching style of coaching, which is very, very effective.
Jason Garriott did make All-GLVC in tennis. Women's softball. Again, another new coach. Keith Fisher came on board literally at the last moment. A young team. The record doesn't indicate the effort that this team put out, as Keith mentioned when he was here a few weeks ago. 14-36 overall, 3-19 in the conference. But again, I thought Keith did a fine job given the situation and what he had.
Well, it was a tough deck that was dealt to him, and for the young ladies. I mean, some of these women have had either 3 or 4 coaches in their career. and yet you did say it, I think they had 9 or 10 freshmen
Yes.
on the thing, and putting that together, going down to Florida, acclimating themselves to college, acclimating themselves to being away from home a little bit, balancing the field and the academics. Again, with that many freshmen and that many that finally realize what it takes. They did win 3 of their last 4, which was a strong finish, but we expect under Keith's tutelage to come a long way next year and to be challenging for even higher expectations in the conference.
Betsy Andrews and Crystal Fisher made second team All-GLVC, and that's not all bad.
Not bad at all.
We turn our attention to baseball, and we had Billy Gernon on last week, and I like Billy. That southern drawl has something. I don't know what it does, but Billy took over a program from Tony Vittorio. Tony went to the University of Dayton, took a number of players with him. Billy, again, didn't have a heck of a lot to work with, but following an 0-7 start, they came alive, and they had a chance up until this past weekend to possibly qualify for the conference tournament. Unfortunately, they didn't make it, but 21-25 overall, 12-15 in the conference, a good start for Billy.
Well, you start out, when you really look at it, you start out 2-10,
Yeah.
and then you look and see where he ended up, and you realize that until yesterday, he had a chance to be in the conference tournament. A week ago, I believe it was Lewis that he upset here in a doubleheader. He beat St. Joe's, which did win the conference over at the Coliseum. He has so much to look back on and to be proud of, and so do those players. Those players lost a coach that was very popular to them. Billy came in, took his time, earned their respect, and halfway through the year they gelled behind Billy Gernon and really played great ball from then out.
2 sports left. One, a new sport, track and field, and we had Rick Norton on just a few weeks ago. Again, the newest addition to the IPFW arsenal, track and field.
Well, when you look at indoor and outdoor track, you look at a great coach, Rick Norton, who's been coaching over at Carroll. He's had a number of state championships, who's going to be our coach next year, along with Mike Frucci, who's handling a lot of the cross-country responsibilities. When you talk about it, you talk about a program that's in its infancy, that is, but I'm not standing here and saying we're going to take 5 or 6 years. We will be vastly improved next year. We're doing our schedule. Matter of fact, we're meeting on Thursday of this week in gearing up to the next step, and I think this is a program at IPFW that's just, it's bursting through and it's going to happen.
Last but not least, the cornerstone of athletics here at IPFW, and that's the men's volleyball team. 21-8 may not sound like a great year for Coach Arnie Ball, especially, and expectations were high with 4 returning seniors from a Final Four team of a year ago. But still, 21-8 is not bad. 12-2 in the MIVA. Unfortunately, they lost to Ohio State not once, not twice, but 3 times, including the conference championship match. Ohio State, national runner-up. All in all, not a bad year for the Mastodons.
You know, expectations were very, very high, and there's nothing wrong with expectations. You always tell a team that, as you know, a year ago we were out there at UCLA, and you tell a team, say, guys, you've got to maximize now. You're never guaranteed of getting back again. But, you know, that's the hard part of doing it all over. But it was a great year for the volleyball, a great year for Arnie. I know by Arnie standards, like you just said, 21-8 are not normal standards. For everybody else, that's an exceptional year. But under no circumstances, I mean, are we disappointed we didn't get to the Nationals? Of course we are. But we're so proud of Arnie and so proud of that team because they have just provided excitement and tournaments and wins for the last 4 years with those seniors. They've done a great job, and Fort Wayne has a lot to be proud of.
We've only got a couple of minutes left in this segment, and it's unfortunate because I think we could talk for eons. The crystal ball comes out now. We mentioned it earlier, Division I status. If everything goes according to plan, what will transpire within the next month, and how will it benefit not just the athletic program, but the entire university, as well as the community of Fort Wayne?
Well, certainly the next 2.5 to 3 weeks are critical. Everybody knows that if Division I is going to happen, that we have to send a letter into the NCAA by June 1st. I continue to be very optimistic that we've done the things, we've worked our way through the internal committees. here at the university. There's a lot of the funding that's fallen in place. There are one or two questions yet to answer, and there's some major meetings this week and the first part of next week going on. But I am confident that the chancellor, who really is in control of things, in his wisdom, whether it be now or whether it be a year from now, he is the one that has to really provide the last bit. If the answers are there, I think he'll move forward. I think if they're not there, he'll do the right thing and hold us off for a year. But selfishly inside, we're looking for a move forward. We're looking forward in the next 3 weeks, and hopefully that in the next month there's a great press conference and you and I are back together. What's it do for a university? What's it do for a city? What's it do for the student athletes? You know, the old things about image is everything. It's going to dramatically change, along with other things that we've talked about in the past, dorms, other things going on here. It's going to dramatically change the face of this university. We already have, from an academic stance, a great university, fantastic faculty. We're now putting the final layer on all of that, and we're here because of the academics. But the extracurricular programs, the co-curricular programs are so important. I think it'll add students. I think it'll add a better type of student in the classroom. I think it's going to give us economic impact. I think it's going to give employers here in the areas, athletes to hire into their business at the end of 4 years. I think it's going to give civic pride. I think it's going to give us a national exposure when you see IPFW rolling across the bottom of the screen. I think there's just thing after thing that are going to accrue to this university when Division I athletics comes. But beyond that, I think it's going to return. We're no longer going to have to take second place to Muncie and to Evansville. We're going to be able to say, as the second largest city in Indiana, we have Division I athletics. And we're going to be able to say to our people and the people that are watching there tonight, next year or 2 years from now, if that announcement's made by June, you're going to be able to see an Indiana, a Purdue, a Notre Dame in a number of sports coming to Fort Wayne, along with Valpo and our sister institution in Indianapolis. It is going to be an exciting time over the next number of years as we not only make that transition, but we position ourselves.
Dr. Bowman, thank you very much for coming on the program today. Thanks for all your help during the course of this year. We hope that things go well in the future, be it if it's a Division I program or if we still have to stay Division II for a short period of time. But again, thank you for coming on the program today, and thanks for all your help.
Well, thank you for having me, and things will go well because we're surrounded by a lot of talent and a lot of unique people. Thanks again for having me.
Dr. Walter Bowman has been my special guest, Director of Athletics here at IPFW. We'll take a short break, and then I'll come back with some final thoughts when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Brian's a student that I had in my resource class. Came from a very poor background. Brian just needed a friend, so we paired him with a community leader. He would take him to rodeos, and then he would take him to plays and different things that this child would never have been exposed to. This man taking his time to come and have lunch with him meant more than anything.
Point a kid in the right direction. This is General Colin Powell of America's Promise. Call us and help keep America's Promise.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Well, the athletic year is come and gone, and we thank Dr. Bowman for being with us today. It's at this time where I want to spend a moment and say thank you to a lot of people for helping to make all this happen this past year. When you stop and think of it, College 56 Sports has had a great year. We've been able to broadcast 1 women's volleyball match, 5 women's basketball games, 5 men's basketball games, 11 men's volleyball matches. If I added up correctly, I believe this is Mastodon Spotlight edition number 37. Hard to believe that the middle of August is 9 months past. And we also had the Arnie Ball Show here as well. A great chance for us to bring you the latest on what's happening with IPFW athletics. There's a lot of people I want to thank for helping me in this endeavor. First and foremost, Mike Jewell, the Sports Information Director here at the university, who asked me back last July if I'd be interested in continuing what I did a year ago with the John Williams and Tony Vittorio show, and I appreciate Mike's thoughtfulness there. A lot of people behind the scenes here. We've had 2 cameramen here, Dan Westrick, who's here today most of the year, and Sean Lee. Bernie Lohmiller, who is our executive producer here at College 56 Sports. The great color people that I've had the chance to work with, Charlie Washington for men's basketball, Jay Webb Horton for women's basketball, and Ryan Perrott for men's volleyball. Without their help and expertise, I would have looked like a, not sure what the term is, but I wouldn't have looked as good as I did, and I appreciate their help tremendously. Two people I really need to thank. One is the man who made this show go, our co-producer, John Yaus. John, I know you're behind the screen there, but thanks you very, very much. You made this job extremely easy, very enjoyable, very comfortable, and I appreciate all your efforts sincerely. I also have to thank one other person, and that is you, the viewer, for taking the time to tune in to Mastodon Spotlight, the Arnie Ball Show, and the various athletic events that we have brought to you this past season. We appreciate that very, very much. As I said, this is the last issue of Mastodon Spotlight for the 1999-2000 school year. We're going to take a break, approximately 13, 14 weeks, get recharged, retooled, re-energized, and then we're going to come back, hopefully, God willing, in the fall with Mastodon Spotlight again, and hopefully we'll be able to do more as well. But we need your help. And I'm going to ask for two things. Number one, comments on Mastodon Spotlight. I'd love to know what you think of the program, what was good, what was bad, what you'd like to see improved. And if you would just send your comments by mail to me, Mike Maz, in care of Mastodon Spotlight, care of College 56 Sports, 2101 East Coliseum Boulevard, Fort Wayne, 46805. I also have personal email that you could email me at, and that is m.maz, M-A-A-H-S, @juno.com. And I guess as mentioned a moment ago, we'd like to bring you more live Mastodon and Volleydon action next year, but we need your support as well there, perhaps from a financial standpoint. If you can help us out, that would be great. Feel free to contact us in care of College 56 Sports at IPFW. Again, 2101 East Coliseum Boulevard, Fort Wayne, Indiana, 46805. Put it in the care of Bernie Lohmiller, who is our executive producer. And you can contact Bernie at 481-5600. Again, we appreciate your support. We appreciate you tuning in. And we would really enjoy hearing and seeing your comments on how we can make this an even better program in the coming year. Well, time's up. It's been a joy. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to bring IPFW athletics into your living room. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much for tuning in. Until next August, with the possible exception of an announcement in June for Division I status, this is Mike Maz saying, have a great summer and go Dons.